Hello and welcome. This is Dennis Westman, your instructor. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about the next couple of sections in your textbook, and this will be Word Section C and Word Section D. So if you would, as we have done in the past, take out your textbooks and let's look at Word Section C, or Unit C as it's called, and this talks about formatting text and paragraphs. In this section, or this unit, you spend a little bit of time working with various elements regarding fonts and copying formats using the Format Painter, which is a great tool. I use it all the time. And you also talk a lot about tabs, indents, paragraph spacing, line spacing, and then finally you're going to talk a little bit about bullets and numbering, borders and shading, and footnotes and endnotes. So in talking about fonts, look at page Word 50, and you can see that a font, as defined, is a complete set of characters of the same typeface or design. So an example of a font would be like Arial, Calibri, Times New Roman, Courier, and those sorts of things. Font size is the actual size of the font. The smaller the number, the smaller the font. The larger the number, the bigger the font. Typically, Word defaults to 11 point, maybe 12 point for most text, and that's what most people type in is an 11 or 12 point font. And most people don't realize this, but they probably use the standard font type, which is typically going to be something like Calibri if you have 2007. If you have older versions of Word, you might be using Tahoma or Arial. So on page 50, it just talks about formatting with fonts, changing the font size, the font type. Pay attention to page 51 at the bottom, the yellow box, adding a drop cap. Those are kind of nice if you're formatting a document wanting to make it look very professional. Page 52 talks about something called the Format Painter, and this is a fantastic tool. If you have something formatted in one place and you would like to take that formatting to another place, select, using the Format Painter, the original font, and then highlight the new text that you would like formatted using the Format Painter. And it is a fantastic tool. Instead of having to manually select all those different options individually, Format Painter takes all of the formatting from one place and copies the formatting to the other place. It doesn't copy text, but it copies the formatting from one place to the other. And it is a really nice, fantastic tool. Line spacing and paragraph spacing, occasionally you'll use that, single space, double spaced assignments, those sorts of things. That's on page 54. And then look at page 55 at the bottom. This talks a little bit about changing the formatting with quick styles, and these are a pre-defined set of styles that you can quickly change, and I use those quite frequently instead of having to manually pick all the different options like the font size, the font type, and that sort of thing. You can align paragraphs like you can align sentences and words. That's on page Word 56. And then tabs on page Word 58 allows you to create like, a half-inch tab, an inch tab, and it'll let you create a document that looks really nice. And then indents on page Word 60 allows you to move the text from the edge of a document. Essentially, you're indenting typically a paragraph, and it allows it to make it look a little nicer. If you look at the bottom of page Word 60, you'll see different types of indents. You're probably going to need to know those for a test coming up. Also, look at page Word 61 at the bottom in the orange box. If you don't like the way something is formatted and you want to start all over again, there is an option that allows you to clear the formatting, and you might want to do that because sometimes maybe you get something that doesn't quite look right and you'd like to make changes. That's a great way to do that. Bullets and numbering on page Word 62. Great tool. One thing I like about Word is it typically handles that stuff automatically. You type an asterisk, and that asterisk will convert to a bullet. So it's kind of nice. You type the number 1, you type your item, and then press enter. It usually will create a number 2 for you automatically. So a lot of the bulleting and the numbering in a list is handled automatically for you through the automated features. But on page 62, it talks a little bit about how to do those automatically as well as manually. Borders and shading on page 64. Another great way to format a document to make it look nicer, you can add borders around a line of text, a paragraph of text, or even the whole page of text. And then adding footnotes and endnotes, page 66. This will be important as you move through college wanting to create different types of papers for your English class, government history, and those kinds of things. Footnotes are at the bottom of the page, endnotes are at the end of the document. And these are usually required for classes depending on if you're using APA or MLA styling, essentially referencing maybe the author of a quote or something like that. But you can read more about it on page 66. Okay, good deal. Now let's move on to Word Unit D, and this begins on page, looks like 77, and in Word D, you're talking about setting margins, dividing documents into sections, dealing with columns and page breaks, adding headers and footers, and adding a table, and ultimately inserting clip art. You're probably going to do a lot of margin setting. This typically is done because of a requirement that maybe the margins have to be 1 inch on all sides, or maybe because you need to format the document to get more text on a page. Word 78 talks about that. The default margin settings, I believe, for Word, top and bottom are set to 1 inch each, and then the left and the right are set to 1.25 inches each. I typically like 1 inch all around, and we'll set them that way. And you can change the default so that every time you set a document, it'll be 1 inch all around. But you'll have some activities where you'll be required to adjust the margins. Adjusting those are talked about on page 78. 80 talks a little bit about dividing a document into sections, and this just allows you to apply specific formatting to a specific section of the document. It's a really great way, like let's say for instance you want this section to be formatted this way, then you insert a section break, and then you want everything below that point to be formatted a different way. You set section breaks, and then the formatting stops, and you can continue on with a different type of formatting below the section break. And it's really nice, but I have to tell you, don't get frustrated with section breaks, because even I still have trouble creating section breaks and getting them to format just right. Those are some of the items that are pretty cumbersome and pretty tedious to work with. So as you're working through the chapter and you're working on the activities, if you're really struggling with section breaks, just Google section break how-tos or Word 2007 section breaks, and you can find some additional resources. But those are really tough. Getting those correctly set and then formatted correctly can drive you crazy. And so I understand if you're having trouble, because again, those are some of the more difficult items to work with. And again, that is section breaks. Page breaks. Every time you move through a document and you get below the bottom margin, it creates a new page for you automatically. But if you want to create a hard page break, you can either do it from the menu, or you could do for something like Control-Enter, which sets a hard page break. So maybe you're ready to start a new area of the document and you're ready for that to move below. You can set a page break that way. Page 84, Word 84 talks about formatting columns. In your assignment, you're going to be asked to create a multi-column document, and this just allows you to have documents, text in 1 column or 2 columns or even 3 columns, and it just allows you to format the document in a different way. It makes it look nice, especially if you're doing flyers, handouts, pamphlets, and so on. Page numbers on page 86 are talked about. It's pretty easy to set those. You just click Insert and set a page number. You can also do some different types of page numbering in headers and footers, which we'll talk about in just a moment. Which is now headers and footers on page Word 88. Headers and footers. A header, of course, is at the top of a document. A footer is at the bottom of the document. And you don't have to use both. Oftentimes, I'll just use a footer with like the page number in it, or maybe I'll use the header that includes like departmental information or the words Murray State College or something like that. But those are just areas that appear on every page after where you've inserted the header or the footer or both. So a header's at the top, a footer's at the bottom, and page 88 talks about that. And then page 90 talks about editing those. And then page 92 talks about inserting a table. And this is just a series of rows and columns. And it typically is used to help organize or format the document to make it look a little better. So that's inserting a table. And again, it's like a grid of columns and rows, and just allows you to have the document organized in such a way that makes it easier for your readers. And then finally, on page 94, it talks about inserting clip art. I use this occasionally. Sometimes it gets overused, not so much in Word, but in programs like PowerPoint. People love their clip art and love to insert that clip art. And so I would be careful about using clip art unless it's applicable. You'll have some activities where you'll be working through setting up some clip art, but again, you want to be careful about that because you don't want to get all crazy with inserting clip art. But it is something that's available. Microsoft has a huge, extensive library of clip art, and I would encourage you to take a look at it. Just as kind of a little tidbit of information, if you want the document to look professional, stick with photographic clip art and not sort of the drawn clip art. So, for instance, if you're making a flyer or a brochure and you want it to look professional, you want it to look really nice, there is an option in clip art to only search for photos versus searching for clip art, movies, animation, that sort of thing. Do that because that will really make the document look nice. When you start adding the little hand-drawn looking kind of images, it kind of looks childish, kind of kiddish. It doesn't really look as well as photographs unless you're going for that look. So to make professional looking documents, insert photos over inserting regular other types of documents. And that finishes up Word Section D. So we've talked about in Word Section C different types of formatting, and in Word Section D we talked about taking formatting further with like tables, headers, and footers, and so on. As usual, if you have any questions, feel free to post them to the discussion forums under the general class chat or lab postings. I'll be happy to answer them or help each other out and answer those questions as well. Again, you can also email me at dwestman@mscok.edu. I hope you all enjoyed the video. I'll see you soon. Thank you and have a great day.